Lead is a funny thing.
Indeed.
Feet, inches, this much.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's the one thing that confuses the hell out of most people.
Yep, there's a couple of reasons for that, I suppose. Everyone sees lead differently for a couple of different reasons. The first thing, for example, would be if you were to ask 3 people how wide that gap between that tree and the brambles is, you'd get 3 different answers.
What, from the edge of the brambles?
Yeah, so if you ask 3 people what that is, you're going to get 3 inevitably different answers.
About 8 feet.
Yeah, you're looking at the same thing. I'd see it as 10. The fact of the matter is, a perceived gap, we are both looking at the same thing from the same place. We are seeing it slightly differently.
Yeah.
So that's number 1. The bigger factor is going to be the method that you're using, which we've kind of just touched on the previous little segment. Depending on the method that you use for a target, it's going to have an effect on your perception of lead. So the next thing is your gun speed relative to the target, okay? And that's going to be dictated by a few things, primarily what method you're shooting. So if you start understanding that somebody shooting with a gun that's going faster than the clay is going to perceive a smaller gap than somebody who's got a gun that's going slower than the clay. So for example, you've got one end of the scale swing through, where you are relying, part of the technique is accelerating from behind the target. You must accelerate, so you've got a gun that's going faster than the bird. That person, all things being equal, will see a smaller gap than the person who starts out in front of the target and either matches the speed or at the far end of the scale, diminishing lead, where you're out at a big gap and watching the gap close in. That's going to be the person that sees the biggest gap. So understanding when you start cycling through methods, you're also going to start changing your perception on sight pictures. This is why so many people come off a stand and go, cool, I saw 15 foot on that and broke it. And you'll be standing there going, well, I just shot it in shot 4 and broke it. You must have both shot physically to the same point in space to break the target. However, your perception is very, very different. That is based on A, what you see a gap as, and B, how you got to that gap. Does that make sense?
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
The delay between here,
and here.
There.
Exactly that. So coming through from the back of a target with a lot of acceleration, you might be one of these people who says, oh, I'll just pull the trigger on the front edge and
You're
it breaks.
actually allowing it 2 foot unmaintained. In
reality, by the time you've told your brain or told your finger to pull the trigger, you've moved out to a couple of foot. Your perceived lead is what you saw at the point of you telling yourself to pull the trigger. You actually shot to a different space, and then vice versa. If you're starting out in front of the target, you will see the true gap. So you'll be shooting to 2 foot and you'll match it and you'll see 2 foot.
Is there a scientific method of calculating lead? Or is it just look at the target and go, from my experience, that needs?
There is, because you'll be able to work out cartridge speed, distance, and how long it's
with fixed variables.
You're not going to do that. The 3 things that control your lead are angle, speed, and distance. The 2 biggest ones are angle and speed. So wider angles, all things being equal, take bigger leads. Speed, fairly self-explanatory. A faster bird, all things being equal, take more lead than a slower bird. And then finally, and least importantly, is distance. Something further away will take slightly more lead than something that's closer. But you don't need to.
Angular lead is probably the same.
Angle and speed are the 2 you really want to focus on. Distance has an impact, but it's not a really big one. So there's a way of looking at it in a system of giving a clue on how much a target's going to take. It's not going to give you feet and inches, but as long as you know what it looks like to you, you can start working out.
Your feet and inches is all that matters.
Exactly.
Right.
Your sight picture is relevant to you. My sight picture is relevant to me. The key thing is you've got a picture to go to. That make sense?
If 2 people shoot similarly, they can discuss lead similarly.
Yeah, so exactly that. If you've got a couple of people who shoot, swing through at a similar pace, and going back to swing through without trying to muddy the waters too much, the swing through, right? You can come from a foot behind the bird and have a really smooth, controlled swing through.
As we've discussed in previous.
Or you could have what you've been doing, which is coming from 8 foot behind it and then absolutely tanking through it. That has a massive impact on your gun speed. So where you insert relative to the target is going to have an impact on how hard you have to push the gun.
Lead.
So it's your relative lead is going to be affected by that. So long story short, faster gun relative to the target, smaller perceived gap. Slower gun relative to the target, larger perceived gap.
We have a target here. We're going to try and demonstrate with the shot cam and me shooting and you over my shoulder.
Exactly that. So you've got a probably 35, maybe 40 yard midi coming across the sky, rolling over. I'm going to try and talk through to you how changing your method and your gun speed is going to affect your sight picture. So one thing we can agree here is that to break this target with the same shells and the same gun and the same bird, to break this bird, you're going to have to shoot to the same point every time. Agreed? It's going to take X, whatever it is. That's not changing. The bit that's going to change is what you perceive X to be. So as we change your gun speed in your methodology, you're going to start seeing, okay, when I shoot swing through, maybe I see 2 foot, and when I shoot maintain, maybe I see 4.
Half X or X times 2. Yeah.
You've got it. Get your gun.
All right, let's try.
Right, so to begin with, let me show you the bird, and I'm just going to say to you, shoot one how you're comfortable, okay? And then you're going to describe to me what you feel you've seen, what it looked like, what your perceptions are, all right?
Oh.
So that's a target where I think you're going to be reasonably comfortable shooting it.
Let's give it a go, shall we?
Have a couple of goes for me, do what you're comfortable with, and then we're just going to discuss what you've seen, other than seeing far too much on the first one.
Yes.
Describe to me your second barrel there. So what's your perception on that?
6 footish.
Fine. And that was a sort of like a smooth, steady 6 foot, would you say?
It was sort of a, well, I took the Ed Solomons, park it in front and pull away a bit.
Yeah,
mixture.
okay, yeah, so you started near the front of the bird and pushed out to it.
Never made a connect, never touched, but there was gun speed.
So it was a fairly steady shot. Because of that, you've seen quite a good chunk of lead, okay? So what we're going to change now, I'm going to get you to pull your hold point further back, deliberately let the bird beat you, which is then going to force you to drive into it. I want you to shoot it in about the same place. The difference here is going to be, you're going to have to see probably half the lead that you think you've just given it,
As soon as we come past it, give it some, and feel the force.
Yeah, if you like. Key thing here is let it beat you. It's going to be much more gun speed deliberately, and as a consequence, you should have to back your sight picture off. Okay, so if the first one was 6, as you've said, let's go for a faster gun with 3, see what happens.
Hold point behind the tree.
That's it, yeah, so this is obviously, with your hold point there, this is going to force the bird to beat you by quite an amount. Right, okay, absolutely gutted that. You saw you came from a long way behind, okay? Gave yourself a big push. If you had to describe that sight picture?
Be honest, I don't think I could.
Fine, okay, so the gun was moving that fast. Would you say that it was a bit of a feeling of coming past the front edge and pulling the trigger at some point?
I felt myself coming in front of the target and thought, timing-wise, this probably will work.
So noticeably different feel and visual from the slow, steady shot.
Yeah, it felt way less controlled.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that would never be a shot that I think we'd choose to set up, but as making a point from the gun speed perspective, that kind of makes sense. What if we now go further out with the hold point? So you're going to have to do much less with the gun, and it's going to be almost watching into the barrel. Let's have a go at that, okay?
Significantly more control, significantly more emphasis on gap.
Yeah, it's going to be a much slower move. The bird is essentially going to be catching your gun up, so you've got gun speed that is lower than the target. So in theory, you should have to perceive a bit more than what you were seeing before.
Yeah, so lean out sort of 30%.
Yeah, so just a bit more. Don't get too worried about it, but it's going to be a further out hold point, much slower, shorter move with the gun. Change the gap.
There?
That looks good. Eyes back.
Pull. High. Pull.
Perfect. Yeah, much slower, much steadier.
A huge gap.
Okay, so you perceived, looking down the gun for me, I saw what I would have said is a 20-25% more.
Well, I think first way I shot it wasn't a true maintain, there was still gun speed.
Yeah,
there.
your first, ignore your first barrel, you started in front of your first barrel and then you gave it a big push. Ignore that one. Your second shot, you watched it come into the gun, very slow, very steady, but you saw a notice.
Felt like 10.
Okay, fine, so that was a much more noticeable one. So what you've seen here is that in reality, you're shooting to the same point every time. You're killing the target in the same place, your shell's doing the same thing. It's maths, right? The shell is going to take X amount of time to get there, in which time the target's covered off Y distance. That's your lead. Your perception of what those leads looks like is completely different based on how you choose to get there, and that's down to methodology and gun speed. So the faster gun, you almost felt like you gave it no lead, you just came through the front, pulled the trigger. The problem with that on a bigger target is, as you said, very difficult to understand what you've done, therefore it's difficult to do it again.
Repeatedly.
First shot, starting near it and pushing away from it, was a nice controlled move and you felt comfortable, looked good, fine. Third shot, held further out, watched it into the gun, slow, steady, controlled shot. Again, that's something where I would look at the pull away and the maintain there were legit shots. The big aggressive swing through, not so much. You could then argue, do you try holding slightly further out and doing a slightly more controlled version of swing through? Because on that target, I actually would be more than happy shooting that with a controlled swing through. But it's managing your shot selection based on how it felt and the results, rather than just, it broke it.
So you stepping into here, how would you see that target?
For me, I would just start near it and push away. So I might start just off the front edge or a foot out the front and just move out.
Never let it touch, but just
I'd start near it and probably move out to what I would see as about 3 foot.
A maintained pull through kind of.
Yeah, so like it's just, again, that's something, to be entirely honest, the finer points of it don't matter. The main thing is it's a movement away from the target that's smooth and controlled.
Can you control it?
Rather than ripping through and hoping.
Oh.
Lovely shot. So that was what I would class as a nice, smooth, steady pull away.
Oh.
And for your last one, so we're going to hold out, stay in front, no need to give it a push, so it's going to be very, very neutral with your hands.
Just some movement. There's always some movement.
Just blending into it. Don't try and push away from the target.
You never just keep the rifle. You never rifle.
Hold out, watch it come, and you're just going to blend into the gap.
Oh.
Come a touch further back, mate. That's it.
Oh.
Beautiful shot.
Ooh, me, did that disappear?
Yeah. Quarter choke, DTL 300, MIDI at 45. Yeah, vaporized it. Dissolved.
It just goes to show that the different cartridge has different effect.
Yeah, I mean, that you can't argue with the kill, but going back to what we said earlier on, you've still got a pair of quarters in, and I don't think many people would look at that target and go, oh, quarter choke.
Yeah, quarter will just disappear.
Yeah, dissolved it. That was great.
But again, cartridge for long range.
That seemed to
shooting it consistently.
Seemed to make the difference there, didn't it?
I mean, but we broke it with those. So.
Yeah, they all broke it. It's just that one broke it particularly well.
Having been sensible, it's now time to take this to the
natural progression. Yeah.
If the bigger sight picture is when your gun is moving slowly with the target, having waited out in front with diminishing lead, how big is it if the gun's coming the other way?
We're going to find out, and this is genuinely something I've not done before, so it will be a learning experience for both of us. So we're shooting a left to right target with a right to left moving gun.
He does it all.
First time. If we try that again, that's weird as shit.
What's interesting is you give it a little flick as you pull the trigger.
I have literally no idea what's happening there other than my gun's going from that way to that way.
Talk about a sight picture, no idea?
It's big, but it's weird because, yeah, there's a lot of moving parts there.
I'll do it again, I'll fancy a go. This is the most ridiculous thing. Is there any legs on this as a method?
Not if you want to hit targets, no. I mean, it's possible, but like we said before, you can break targets doing all sorts of stuff.
You'll add it to your trick shot repertoire.
It's a weird one. We'll go again. Yeah, very, very difficult to get right. Obviously, the first one was a bigger, well, perceived a much bigger gap, and it broke. The second one, I think I was close to it, but I mean, yeah, that's...
Mate, the amount of ridiculous things I hear about, like how to shoot better and well, and tricks, tips, we'll throw it in the bag.
As a bit of fun, yeah, there's, I'm not sure there's a great deal of legs in that, but...
If I can try.
I'm sure you can.
Try. I don't know, mate. I don't know. Flick this one open to beast mode.
Oh, wow. That's
it helps you hit more.
That's happening, is it?
Yeah, it is,
yeah.
Mate. No idea. That is the most bizarre.
It's weird, isn't it?
Pull.
The problem with that is because there's so much going on, other than saying it's a big gap, I can't tell you what I'm really seeing there.
Yeah, relying on natural timing.
It's a weird one. Last two. Pull.
It is the most stupid thing I've done all day.
Yeah, well.
But it just goes to show
your idea.
There is a new method, and it's right here, right now, and you can join.
Yeah, for $5.99 a month, you too can be a member of the Reverse Swing Madness Club.
Psychology Club.